Good morning. I see some friends on the call. I think Mason is finishing up setting everything up, but while she is doing that and sharing the PowerPoint, I will go ahead and get us kicked off and go through a few things for our government relations lunch and learn today for Tennessee while she's finalizing setting that up. Um, Again, my name is Kelly Petcavish. I see a lot of familiar names on here, some new names, which is so exciting. And I currently serve on the SACAC board as one of the government relations co-chairs. And I get the pleasure of working with Mason Brown, who is with St. Mary's Episcopal School, Kristen King, who is with Persist Nashville, and then Kelly Amara, who is with Baylor School. And we, for those of you who may not realize or know, Mason is located in Memphis and Kristen is located in Nashville, and then Kelly is located in Chattanooga. So we're really excited this year to have three co-chairs spread throughout the state of Tennessee. We have struggled in the past with some logistics and getting people involved just because Tennessee is such a long state. And so we really are excited to have three people involved in that. So that way we can get involvement from all areas of the state, but also hear everyone's unique and special needs in those areas so they can best serve their students. So I was one of our co-chairs who worked specifically with Tennessee last year. And Sweet Mason and Kristen were friends of mine throughout just the college admissions world, and we were in need of two co-chairs, so we kind of reached out to them because they had been very involved in different aspects and had shown that they were very passionate about advocating for students. So we wanted to kind of be clear about how they got involved. And then Kelly approached me at the NACAC conference and was like, hey, I really want to get involved specifically with government relations. And so we gladly accepted her help. And so I know a lot of people want to get involved with SACAC in different capacities, and we want that for you all. We want you to get involved, and we don't ever want anyone to not understand how people got in the roles that they are in, and we want to welcome anyone to help us out. And so we're going to have a call to action for a few steps after the panel today. And one of those is going to be to volunteer with us. And we would love for anybody else to serve on the committee and help us with the work that we're wanting to take on for Tennessee. So just another quick thing I wanted to hit on. There are so many policies in Tennessee that we are passionate about as a group working in Tennessee. And we kind of really debated on which one we would focus on specifically for Tennessee. And my role is to support Mason and Kristen in their work that they're doing for SACAC. And so we really kind of debated and went back and forth on different policies. But Kristen and Mason really advocated and felt like they could move the needle on some work being done with student to counselor ratio. And so that is the thing we are going to focus on today. I think Mason is trying to get Kristen added so she can moderate our panel. That's why our screen's going in and out with a couple different people, but we really, really want to focus on student to counselor ratio. And that is what we are going to be talking about today and asking for your help in it with some of our call to action things after this panel as well. So that is what we have decided to focus on this year, specifically in Tennessee, but there are all sorts of policies that we will talk with legislators about in the spring at our Day on the Hill, and we'll send a save the date for that after this event as well. So be on the lookout for that. So Mason, I know we're getting ready now to transition into our panel. We have three amazing volunteers that are here to speak to us today just about the state of education in Tennessee. So our panelists here, are we ready to go, Mason, or do you need another minute?
I'm looking for Kristen. I thought she was under Persist, but I don't see her. So Kelly, you're a co-host. If you're able to look for her,
Okay.
Slide.
Let me find her real quick.
Well, I'll be honest, we're a Google Meet school, so it's been a while since I've been presentation. So forgive my technological issues. But y'all know better than anyone as educators that school counselors are the heart and soul oftentimes of schools. And so you all know that oftentimes the school counselor to student ratio doesn't allow for counselors to do adequate work on the college search process or just the post-grad process, in addition to all the other responsibilities that school counselors have. I feel very fortunate. I have a small caseload at my school, but I know that I'm definitely in the minority. And so we wanted to kind of show you all a couple numbers before we move into our panel to talk more about kind of what they're seeing, especially post-COVID. So for example, these are some facts that we found from NACAC, which we're very grateful for. So the American School Counselor Association and NACAC recommend a student to counselor ratio of 250 to 1, which is already, I feel like, incredibly high. I only have 32 senior girls. And even that, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing all that I can do to possibly get them where they need to go all the time. So 250 to 1 is the recommended ratio, which is already pretty high. But in the 2018 to 2019 academic year, the average national ratio was 430 to 1, so nearly double the recommended ratio. And Tennessee's average ratio is 314 to 1. So a little under the national ratio, but still above what NACAC and the School Counselor Association recommends. It's no surprise to you all, I'm sure, that the NACAC report found that students who meet one-on-one with the school counselor at least just one time are 6 times more likely to complete the FAFSA, over 3 times more likely to attend college, and 2 times more likely to enroll in a bachelor's degree program. I'm sure, again, that's not surprising to you all, but the point of this presentation is to kind of show some real numbers, show that probably things that you're experiencing as a school counselor is not unique to you, and to hopefully inspire some advocacy at the end of this in the form of emails to legislators and some other recommendations that we'll have. So Kelly, do you feel like we're ready?
Guys, we're having some really weird technical issues. Nichole, who's on our panel, is here, and I think other people that are on our panel are in the attendee room, but they're not visible to me. So wait, here comes Kristen, and I think we're just waiting on Felicia then to join.
Okay.
We're having some weird technical issues, guys. I don't know what's going on.
Nichole, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. And there we go. Hi. It wasn't letting me turn my camera on. Good afternoon. My name is Nichole Davari, and I am the Director of Community Engagement and DEI at Persist Nashville. I'm not sure if more bio or.
That's great.
Okay.
Katie, sorry. So Kristen's here. Hi, everybody. I have never had that happen before. It just said I was not in the meeting, even though I was watching the whole meeting. That was very bizarre. Katie, are you here?
I'm here, but I'm not on this panel. I don't know how I got added.
I think we're looking for Katie Farrell. I don't see her.
Okay.
But hello, Katie King. Thank you for being here.
Nichole,
Thank you.
Nichole, do you want to talk a little bit about your work at Persist, and then we can jump into questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll get started from there.
Absolutely. So a little bit of background for me. So I am a former classroom teacher. I taught in Metro Nashville Public Schools for 5 years, and then have been working in nonprofits since that time in the classroom, and really just felt like I was loving being a classroom teacher and was able to really create an impact for the students that were in my classroom, but wanted to be able to expand my reach. And so fast forward to my work at Persist Nashville, where we're able to serve over 1,700 students, and it's really been just an incredible journey. So I specifically work. I'm the director of DEI, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and community engagement, but I also have a caseload. So I'm also a Persist coach. And what we do at Persist is that we help students persist through college. Right now, only 27% of MNPS, Metro Nashville Public School grads, are earning a college degree. And we define college as a technical degree, 2-year degree, or bachelor's degree. And so what we do is we do one-on-one coaching with students via text and meetings and community engagement and events to help students persist, because we know so many of our students can get to college or may get accepted, but life happens and they need that extra caring adult with them.
Thanks, Nichole. And like Mason was saying, when you look at the map, you know, the point of today and why we want to have this panel is like to bring that map to life. And to bring it to life from 3 different parts of the state. You know, we have Nichole here in Nashville, and then Katie's in East Tennessee, who we're getting panelist powers here, along with Felicia, who is the Director of College Access at TSAC and is in Memphis. So Nichole, I'm actually going to kick it off with you while we get Felicia and Katie in here. When you look at, and you can touch on your experience, you know, Nichole's also the president of the board of Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors. And has extensive, you know, education experience in the classroom. What is the state or health of education from your perspective right now? And in particular, when you think about that for, you know, high school students and then those who are going into college?
You know, thanks for the question, Kristen. And I feel comfortable answering this because I know I'm in a room of educators and we're going to talk real, and the real for me is that I'm worried, right, about the health of the education system right now, particularly after COVID. I am concerned about just the overall intrinsic motivation that our students have just taken a hit to their intrinsic motivation, and in particular some of the work that I do around teacher diversity as well. So we know that educators are superheroes, and the more we see educators leaving the classroom or leaving their roles in public schools or in their school homes, it's concerning to see the lack of what's the word I'm looking for? The lack of just sustainability or the consistency for students. And I think that that's really the biggest concern around the health of our education system for me right now.
Thank you. And then Felicia, it looks like we have you now. Can I confirm that?
Yes.
Yay! Thank you so much for being here. And it looks like we also have Katie. So what we will do is we'll have them do a quick introduction of who they are, and then I'm going to ask them some of the same questions here, and we'll fully dive in. So Katie, if you could give a real quick introduction of where you're working, how long you've been there, and then Felicia do the same, and we'll kick it off from there. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm Katie Farrell. I am a school counselor at Alcoa High School in East Tennessee, close to Knoxville. I have been in this role here at this school for about 9 years now, and 11 years total as a school counselor. We are a public high school, a community high school. So we have one high school for our whole school system in our city. And then there are different school systems within our county as well. So we serve we have a little over 700 students at our high school with 2 high school counselors, me and my co-counselor. Sorry, the bell. Hold on.
That was perfect. That was boom. You're done with the intro. It's great. Felicia, welcome to the call. If you'll introduce yourself to the group.
Thank you so much. It's saying that I can't start my video because the host has to start it.
We'll get it figured out, but we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me to come today. I'm the Director of College Access for the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation, Tennessee Higher Education Commission. So I've been with TSAC for going on 15 years now. So I really feel like time has truly flown. And I've been in this role for approximately 3 years now. And as in working in this particular role, we have an outreach team that covers the entire state, all 95 counties, and we have the pleasure of working with all types of counselors from the private sector to the public sector. So I'm really excited to be here today.
And I'll go off of that point. You know, you get to see a lot of different types of schools, right? And you work with lots of different types of students. On the question that Nichole answered a minute ago with, you know, what's the state or health of education from your perspective right now, I'd love to have you, you know, extrapolate on that and tell us what it looks like from your pilot seat.
Well, I will definitely say when we look at the state of education, we consider the number of high school students that are graduating high school and getting ready to enroll in the various colleges and universities and higher ed institutions. And so we are noticing that the enrollment is just not there like it should be. So as a state, we are looking to build that momentum. And so for this upcoming year, we have a huge initiative to encourage students to enroll in college. And so we are truly trying to work with as many people as possible to build that momentum. You know, we've noticed that there's been some growth in certain areas, but as a whole, and of course, that's to be expected with everything that has happened with the pandemic, but we definitely want to increase college enrollment overall.
And let's zoom in on that just a little bit. Katie, I'd like to bring you in on this and kind of my little antenna go, well, like, why is that happening? Or what's it like on the ground for someone who's a counselor? So I'd like to ask you, tell us about your ratio in terms of like, how does that actually play out in your work? What does that look like in your day to day with all the things that you have to do as a counselor?
Yeah, so, like I said, we have a little over 700 students at our high school with 2 counselors. So that means we roughly have, over 350 students apiece, and that's grades 9 through 12. So, that plays out in the sense that I spend a lot of my time with students who are at risk for various things academically, emotionally, first gen college students doing that transition to college. I spend a lot of time with them, a lot of time with my students who are very motivated and, like high flyers is what we like to call them, who are going to come seek me out and see me. But I think the hard part is having that many students. I became a school counselor to help students in lots of different capacities, to help them academically, to help them emotionally, to help them with their college stuff. And, having that many, I cannot attend to everyone like I would like to do. Like I can't have as many individual meetings with all of my students. I just get to do that like once or twice a year.
Yeah, and I'm gonna Nichole, I'm curious, how does that play out for some of the student populations you work with when a counselor's maybe not able to spend that time or like deeper time with a student? And I know you work with students with, different immigration statuses, but like, what does that mean for a student looking to go to college who may have a different situation that's not just cut and dry?
Yeah, what we found is that for students that have different immigration statuses, for students that are first generation, or students that are coming from underserved or underprivileged backgrounds, they need that caring adult. They need that one-on-one support. We all know this, there's no surprise there. And I think about some of the advice that I've been given when specifically working in nonprofit and thinking about how nonprofit partners are here to help fill that gap, because we know that by design, unfortunately, our counselors are overwhelmed and are just expected to fill way too many roles and way too many needs. And so I have to be in the position where I'm working to make sure that my job does not exist in the future. And so that looks like students not being, when I have to fill this gap that schools are not able to meet because of the just capacity issues, that really looks like a lack of, whether it's motivation, so students just not understanding that actually college is possible for you. For example, I work with undocumented students, and there are a lot of, whether it's from the media or family or just even educators that they come into contact with that aren't just well equipped to serve our students that hold different types of identities. They believe that college isn't an option for them. Well, it's just something that's not in the cards. And we know that that's not true. There are all different kinds of avenues to pursue to go to college for undocumented students. And that's just one example of where when we have this outrageous student to counselor ratio, kids are falling through the cracks.
And let me be clear, anything that I'm bringing up today, I was also a counselor, isn't because counselors aren't working their butts off to get it done. It's that there is not enough time in the day to do the work. And that's why, like at the end, we're going to also talk about ways that you're able to contact your legislators and get involved in making actual change around this. This one could be for any of you. So maybe Felicia or Katie, you could chime in here. How do you think since the beginning of your time working in education, it doesn't have to be specifically the ratio, but like how has your job changed over time, or how do you see the counselor's job having changed? I know it's definitely changed even since COVID, but kind of tell me a little bit more about that.
I'll jump in first, if that's okay. I think one of the big ways that it's changed just for me personally is that when I first started in school counseling, I was the testing coordinator for a very large high school, and it was horrible. And that's all that I ever did and got to get done, essentially, was, counting tests and sorting and doing all of that kind of thing, and not being able to see students, which is the whole reason I became a counselor in the first place. So that whole, changing of school counseling standards and updating all of that had been done since 2005, and saying counselors can't be testing coordinators anymore. That was a huge job shift for me. And then also, I moved schools at that time as well. And I have seen since then, there's just been a lot more value coming from my coworkers on what school counselors do and can do for students. Just that mind shift of I'm not an administrator, just to give tests to students and be there to, do the testing stuff. It's like they understand now more of what our role is as a school counselor. So that has been very helpful in allowing me to do, the work that I should be doing in schools.
Felicia? Thanks, Katie.
I'll say that I've noticed that counselors have truly become greater involved in just the helping to guide students figure out what their passions are. At one point, I feel like there was a time where counselors spent more time with the social, emotional portion of their work. And now I really see a lot of them at the ground level, really trying to understand what does it take, what does it mean to really help a student figure out what their passions are and where they need to be and what they need to do in order to accomplish them once they leave the high school.
I also want to urge you, have conversation in the chat. If you have questions for the group on the Q&A, please engage with us there. If you have experience of having other duties, hello lunch duty was mine, that I had to be in for an hour each day. Share that experience with us and what you're, seeing on the ground at your school. Felicia, go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to Felicia's point, I think something that has been helpful to facilitate that change is more resources from TSAC and THEC, that are catered toward each grade level, and the changing of those standards. It's just more, I feel like there's more direction with that and more applied help to walk students through, okay, let's do this interest inventory and aptitude test to then help you connect that to classes you're taking in high school, or, you're in middle school. So what you can take in high school, and then how that translates to what you're doing afterwards. So I think that we as counselors have a lot more resources right now too than we have in the past.
With that, Katie, resources are good, and there's so much going on in the state for our students, and Felicia, I'll have you speak on this in a moment, but how do you keep it all together with different due dates, different scholarship programs? I know that I find myself being oh God, this is happening again. Like, I need to prepare my students. What are you seeing that's really working right now that you're like, yes, we've got that right?
Just as like at our high school, you
It could
think?
be your high school, but like, or it could be in general. Like, what, how do you keep up with all that? And what are some of the successes that you see in terms of like maybe programs the state's offering or ways in which, things are going well here?
Yeah, I think one thing that's been helpful in, for me and my co-counselor is that we is splitting responsibilities for things. We have obviously our caseload and we split that by alphabet. So we do the things we need to do for our student population, but splitting things like, okay, who is in charge of these big tasks, like the scholarship things, or scheduling college admissions people to come to the school, or just those different like big picture tasks. We split those things so that someone can be in charge of the due dates for that, because, or the scheduling and all of that entails, because it's too much to keep up with for one person. And if we're both trying to do that for our individual students, it's hard. We would kind of do the same work, or then nothing would get done at the same time. So that's been really helpful and worked well for us. Also, I think that we do a good job of tracking things for students here, just because, there are two of us and we work closely together. So I think that helps us meet some of those goals that the state wants us to do about, getting students to have ready graduate status, and to, get their FAFSAs done and Tennessee Promise and all of that stuff. Like, we work well together in keeping detailed notes and checklists about those things. So that kind of is what works for us.
Yeah, thank you. Felicia, you get that like 30,000 foot view of a lot of different people doing a lot of work. What are you seeing that's working out there, and what do you recommend for keeping up with all the great things that are happening for students? But sometimes it could feel pretty overwhelming.
Well, I definitely recommend college4tn.org. That is the state site where it's full of videos, tutorials. It also has information regarding different aspects of a student's life, in terms of if I'm in middle school, what are some things that I should be doing in middle school? What are some things to prepare myself to get ready for life beyond high school, if I'm looking to enter into the world of work. And then also, when the state has FAFSA completion events, those virtual events are listed on that site as well. So we try to put together just key things that will be beneficial to counselors all in one place, so that when they are moving and they are going and students are popping in at the last minute and they're trying to work on things, they can just say, hey, make sure you go to that college4tn.org site, because, if you need to know how to do a section regarding the FAFSA, there's a 5-minute tutorial on there. And so I think that particular site is a great site to just mention. And then that way the students can find, as well as their parents can find out about all types of opportunities that are available to them.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I want to be really upfront that the first time that someone asked me to do like advocacy work or talk to a legislator or whatever, I was terrified. It still definitely makes me nervous. And Nichole, I'm going to put you on the spot. I didn't really prep you for this question, but here you go. If we're about to talk about like what steps can you take, everyone on the call, to like try to create action here. But before we do that, Nichole, what would be your advice to someone who's like maybe nervous about talking to their legislator, or feels like what I have to say doesn't matter? I know you've had a lot of experience doing that. What would your guidance be?
They work for us. Don't forget, right? Like, I think that's what sometimes we can put these people because of their public persona, right? Or they have lots of money that the people are spending on campaigns, but ultimately we have to remember that they work for us. And we're their supervisors in some way. And so I think being able to kind of just like take down those walls mentally that we can have, and this is like jumping ahead to next steps, but one of the things I really wanted to make sure I shared today was that it's going to take all of us. And I think sometimes we can get in this just educator bubble. I know that I do, like even the majority of my friends are educators, right? And so we get in these bubbles and we try to toss around ideas, but it is going to take our, public representatives. It's going to take our business leaders in our cities, and it's going to just take the whole community. I mean, something that I always say is por y para la comunidad, which means by and for the community. And so I really do think that we need to remember that these people work for us and engage them and step outside our educator bubble. But I say all that, and then it's like, Nichole, I have a caseload of 350 students, right? How in the world am I supposed to be able to do this? Like, I'm just trying to, let's be honest, sometimes we are just trying to serve every student and get through the day. That's where I think that our partners are so important. So our nonprofit partners as mentioned, I am the president of the board for Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors. Get in touch with me if you're interested, right? Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors. Turk is another great, I don't want to butcher their whole, it's Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, right? These are people that are doing the work on the advocacy side, and they need educators. And there's so many others, and there's just two that I named that I'm closely tied with, but they are doing the advocacy work here. They host Day on the Hill. Take part in those things, put in it's professional development. I'll say that too, right? This being able to take advantage of these opportunities to connect with other partners is professional development. So take a day from school because you're investing in yourself as well in order to create greater change. But I would say break down those barriers because they work for us.
You just made me a little bit more confident. I get to work with Nichole a lot, so I have her give me like pep talks of like, hey, can I do this thing? Yes, you can. Katie or Felicia, what would you like to see? I mean, what do you think are realistic steps that legislators could start taking today, or if you could wave a magic wand that you'd like to see happen? Maybe even at your school level too. It doesn't have to be like the governor certainly, makes a decree or whatever may be the case.
I think, one thing is kind of what we're talking about now is having, more school counselors in schools, especially like our public schools, our public high schools, and even at like the elementary level, their caseloads are higher than ours are. So, to be able to invest so that our counselors can invest the time that we know that our students need. I came to my current high school. Like I said, it's a local community school. There was one counselor here before I started, and when she retired, they replaced her with 2 counselors. And, that was 9 years ago now, but whenever our population has grown a lot since then. And whenever it's mentioned like, hey, like our caseloads are getting large, again, for our school counselors, and they say, well, we just hired another one, 2 of you, like 9 years ago. So, the thought is kind of like, why are we complaining? So I think just the educating the stakeholders in our community about what the services school counselors provide is important. And just, communicating to legislators that those ratios are essential if we want to help students where they need help.
Yeah, to add to what Katie has said, a lot of it has to do with just communicating with your legislators, letting them know what your concerns are, letting them know what your needs are. Oftentimes we forget that they typically have run on a platform of, I want to help you. I want to help your community. I want to help the community. I want to help the state. And so in order for them to be able to help, they have to know how can they help. They have to hear from you, because if you're on the ground level, if you're working with the students and the parents and just within this educational realm, and that's not their expertise per se, they're depending on you to provide them with the information and knowledge that they need so that they can make those legislative decisions and introduce those bills that will be helpful and transformative to the work that is being done.
Yeah, I think we sometimes take for granted that everyone knows how important counseling is or knows all the things that we do. And I think people do in this like pie in the sky idea, but they might not understand all of the things you do during the day. So communicating in your community, or if you're sending emails, which we'll talk about soon, having others do that, with how divisive everything is in our world right now. This is a topic that I think people can get behind. Everyone wants students to have support, but understanding what that support means, you got to put legislation behind it. Nichole, I saw you come off mute. Did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think former English teacher speaking here, but narrative is so important. We can sit around the data, and a lot of our legislators are looking at this data, but it's not the same when you hear a name, right? And when you hear a feeling and a story, and our stories are really what move people. And I think that's why it's so important to be talking to our legislators, but not even just hitting them with the facts, because it's like, 350 to 1 or whatever it is. Okay, that feels so far from me. But when I see a roster and then another page and then another page, right, then it becomes real. And then when you share stories, I think just remembering that our stories are so important.
Katie, Felicia, or Nichole, what do you want legislators to hear? What is that story? If you could sum it up, what do you want them to hear when these counselors, walk in the room and talk to them or email them and they're walking away at their desk later? What do you hope is resonating in their head?
That the work that's being done is to help not only the present, but also the future. And so I want them to hear that they can make a difference. And the difference that can be made is by them listening to what their constituents are saying, what the counselors are saying, what the people who are actually on the ground level doing, and taking to heart the message behind what they see, what they hear. And, as Nichole mentioned, numbers are one thing, but the stories behind the numbers, that's the reason why. And they can really make a difference.
Thanks, Felicia. Katie or Nichole?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing, kind of similar to what Felicia was saying, is that they can make a difference in the impact of that. I mean, every counselor goes into this job because we care about students and want to help them. So, letting the people that are trained to do that actually do that work to help prepare our students for how they're going to be successful when they leave us, because that's the whole point. One of the whole points of education, right, is to be able to leave school and go on to be a successful citizen, community member, whatever that means for that person. So, allowing counselors to have the capacity and, the relationships with students to do effective work with them and help prepare them emotionally and academically and, career-wise for what they want to do when they leave here. Because like you were saying earlier, Kristen, this is not a divisive kind of issue that we want students to, grow up and go on to do what is going to be in their best interest, that they're going to enjoy and be successful at. Like nobody debates that. So I think just realizing those numbers make a difference, and the impact that you can have with students, and what they're able to do when they leave here by having those relationships with their school counselor.
Stick with me, but bringing it full circle to college, right? To college access and to college admissions. When we think about this, we know that when students don't have some type of higher degree, their options for their life as an adult are more limited, right? Scott, one of our co-founders at Persist, I always hear him say, like, the worst place to be is stuck. And I think about that for our students. And although it may not feel like we are doing harm at the current state, harm is happening to our families. We're causing harm by not addressing this issue, right? Like, because ultimately people are not getting what they need from their guidance counselors because their counselors are overwhelmed. And then they are going into our world and not having the tools that they need to be successful. That does, at the end of the day, it impacts the income that people have and their day-to-day life and the kind of lifestyle they have. And then people are having to make hard decisions. I mean, when we even think about crime, right, in Nashville, right, like crime as a result of the pandemic has gone up, and of course the growth of our city as well, but like harm is happening at the current state, whether you're like able to see it or not. It looks different. So it's not just about college admissions and college access. It really is about helping make sure that we're not doing harm to our families by not giving them what they need.
Yeah, inaction is a form of harm. Is definitely, like, if you're not already fired up to take action and advocacy, or if you don't see some of these issues, maybe with the student populations you work with and it feels distant to you, understanding that like there are families in our states and students in our state who are experiencing this. I want to thank our panelists so much. You do like similar work, but also like very, you're in different places in the work and working with students. And I just appreciate you three so much for being here and giving us that different perspective. We're about to transition into the like what you can do now, and I'll hand it back to Mason and Kelly. But before we do that, I wanted to share a quick story. When I first started doing a little bit of advocacy work, I thought there is no way that someone on the opposite side of the aisle from me politically, like that we could ever see eye to eye on anything. And that's for whatever, I think there's a lot of that right now, right? And that's whatever side you may be on. That's not me. I'm not here to judge that. I will say that when you start talking about education, it is really fascinating to see how quickly you come a little bit closer. Now, I'm not saying on every issue. No, I'm not trying to be here and be like, it's just magical that that's going to happen. But some of the legislators who I thought there is no way we're going to have one thing to talk about or that they're going to hear me at all, actually heard me the most. And so as we go into that here, if you have any of that in your head and you were like me of like, well, I don't know, you can. And Mason and Kelly are going to tell you some next steps and what you can do to actually start taking action.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. So as we wrap up, if you're about to log off, give us like 1 more minute so we can go over next steps, because this is probably one of the most important parts of this presentation is kind of what to do next. And I'll be honest, when Kristen and I started working together on this, I was like, I work at a private school. Like, I don't have much to say about this topic. Like, I support this movement, but I feel a little hypocritical talking about this. But I think everyone needs to come together, whether you work at a CBO or a public school or a private school, and support students, because at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for. And so equity in terms of access to counselors is so important, as we all know. And so next steps after this presentation, we're going to send out a survey that is going to ask you a little bit about your work as a counselor, whether you do socio-emotional help or just school counseling, or kind of asking a little bit more about what your responsibilities involve and how much of that is actually college counseling, things like that, to get a better sense of what our counselors across the state are being asked to do in their jobs. And then we'll send out this presentation and have this email linked, but on the next slide, I'll show you there's also a QR code. There is a bill that has been introduced to Congress that's a pretty small step in the right direction, right? We've talked about how school counseling and smaller student counselor ratios and adding more counselors is not really a divisive topic. I think we can all agree that that would be helpful. And so there's a bill that's been introduced that would give grant money to introduce more counselors into public schools that have a lower graduation rate. And so we would love to see that passed. And so this email, you can type in your name and just fill in the member of your or your state representative. And it's a really quick kind of template email that you can fill out, and that's a great place to start. This spring, we're also hosting an in-person day on the Hill that we would love for you to pass around to your friend. We'll send out reminders throughout the year as well, but that is on February 21st, and we're going to be meeting in Nashville, which is really exciting because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to do an in-person day on the Hill in a while. So we're going to be meeting in the middle of the state to do a day on the Hill, February 21st, to talk about advocacy for smaller student counselor ratios. And we would love for y'all to get interested in volunteering with SACAC or volunteering with the Tennessee Government Relations Committee. This is my first time being on a SACAC committee, and I didn't really, honestly, political science and government classes growing up were probably the things that I was worst at. So I was a little bit nervous about this, but it's been a really cool opportunity to learn more about what my colleagues do and how lucky, honestly, I feel. And so anything I could do to support my colleagues would be great. And so we'll send out a survey. We would love for y'all to fill that out. And then this next slide, if you scan the QR code, you can find your district representative. But if you scan that, you literally type in "Dear Mr. or Miss So-and-so," and then basically it fills out the rest for you. It's super easy, and that's a great place to start. But Kelly, Kristen, anything we missed from the questions or the chat box?
I just want to say a huge thank you to our panelists today and to Kristen and Mason for jumping in this blind. They've never really been involved with government relations and both jumped on as two new co-chairs along with Kelly and Chattanooga this year. And we're just really thankful for them and excited to see what is to come, and just really hope everyone will do the survey and pass it along to your colleagues, because that'll give us some really great data to direct our work that we're going to do.
Yep,
Yeah.
I designed it in mind. It's less than 3 minutes. I know we have to fill out a lot of surveys, but it really is helpful. And I'm going to personally, with Kelly and Mason and the other Kelly, read every single one of them. So it helps us. It'll take you less than 3 minutes. You're going to get out a little early here because we know that your days are like wildly busy. But I would ask and say, take one of these steps that we've talked about in the extra 10 minutes that you have, and then you've already got a start there. Mason, anything to finish this up with?
No, I just really appreciate y'all's patience at the beginning of this. Just figuring out Zoom, despite it being, 2-3 years into Zoom land. We really appreciate your patience. And we hope you all have a wonderful college application season. And we appreciate y'all bearing with us. And we're really excited that you joined us today. So if you have any questions, like we said, please fill out that survey that you get after this call. We'll be using that to tell kind of stories when we do go to the state capitol in February, and we'll send out more information about that day on the Hill in the hopes that you can join us.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great
all.
day.